March 11th. The Offended Pharisee. Luke chapter 11, verses 37 to 54. While Jesus was speaking, a Pharisee asked him to dine with him. So he went in and reclined at table. The Pharisee was astonished to see that he did not first wash before dinner. And the Lord said to him, "Now you Pharisees cleanse the outside of the cup and of the dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. You fools! Did not he who made the outside make the inside also? But give as alms those things that are within, and behold, everything is clean for you. But woe to you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and every herb, and neglect justice and the love of God. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others. Woe to you, Pharisees, for you love the best seat in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplaces. Woe to you, for you are like unmarked graves, and people walk all over them without knowing it." One of the lawyers answered him, "Teacher, in saying these things you insult us also." And he said, "Woe to you, lawyers also, for you load people with burdens hard to bear, and you yourselves do not touch the burdens with one of your fingers. Woe to you, for you build the tombs of the prophets whom your fathers killed. So you are witnesses, and you consent to the deeds of your fathers, for they killed them, and you build their tombs. Therefore also the wisdom of God said, I will send them prophets and apostles, some of whom they will kill and persecute, so that the blood of the prophets shed from the foundation of the world may be charged against this generation, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who perished between the altar and the sanctuary. Yes, I tell you, it will be required of this generation. Woe to you, lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. You did not enter yourselves, and you have hindered those who were entering." As he went away from there, the scribes and the Pharisees began to press him hard, and to provoke him to speak about many things, lying in wait for him, to catch him in something he might say. The first thing my mother said to me when I sat down at the table for dinner was usually, "Have you washed your hands?" She knew that most of the time she would have been just as well to go and say, "Go and wash your hands," since I had a track record of indifference to cleanliness. But she tolerated me, as I only now fully realise. After all, eating with dirty hands is hardly a sin. Unless, of course, you're a Pharisee. Then it is. Jesus shocked this particular Pharisee. He had invited Jesus to a meal. The first thing he noticed was that the Lord sat down at the table without bothering to wash his hands. What offended this man was not that Jesus' hands were physically dirty, but that he was ignoring the rituals of the Pharisaic tradition. Jesus saw his response as a symptom of a serious spiritual sickness. When I was a young minister, a lady who was responsible for the prize giving of the church Sunday school asked me where she should put the books the children were later to receive. "Oh, just put them on the communion table," I replied casually. She gasped, "On the holy table?" and added that one of her previous ministers would never have allowed the books to go on the holy table. I was young and rather thoughtlessly responded, "It's okay, it's no different from your kitchen table." Perhaps you can imagine the look of horror on her face. I did my best to explain, but probably failed to recover the situation. The table was clearly special for this lady. It was, after all, the table from which Holy Communion was served. But what makes communion or the Lord's Supper holy is not the bread or the wine or the table, but the Lord himself, and the communion we enjoy with him. The table is just a table, but the traditions this woman had been taught had turned it into an object of reverence. The Pharisees had the same attitude to their traditions, and in this case, to the ritual washing of hands before eating. But their scrupulous concern about washing hands and cups and dishes was not matched by a concern to have clean hearts. They confused the symbol with the reality, and yes, they made a show of giving alms, but they were not offering their hearts either to man or to God. They tithed every little herb, while they were indifferent to justice and love. They loved the prominent seats in the synagogues and to be shown honour in the market. Their religion was essentially self-centred and man-centred. Whatever they seemed to be on the outside, leading figures, devoted men of religion, careful to keep the law, they were in fact inwardly dead. They were more interested in and emotionally committed to their own trivial distinctives than to what really honoured and glorified God, namely genuine love for him and for their neighbours. They made a pretence of devotion to God in order to be admired by men. Tragically, they were spiritually blind, but had assumed they had 20/20 vision. Jesus calls them fools, verse 40. The word means someone who lacks spiritual understanding. It describes a person who, despite appearances, is not living before the face of God. To such a person, the superficial becomes important, and the important becomes superficial. That is something that didn't die out with the Pharisees. Today's reflection. Jesus described the Pharisees as hypocrites in Matthew 23, verses 15 to 36, a Greek word for actors who wore masks to play parts in a play. They were one person on the stage, but another person in real life. But hypocrisy begins to disappear when you realize that your real audience is God. Will you remember that today? This devotional series is being produced with the kind permission of the Good Book Company. A link to the book To Seek and to Save by Sinclair Ferguson can be found in the description below.